The Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross. Book 2, Chapter 5 sets down the first line and begins to explain how this dark contemplation is not only night for the soul, but is also grief and torment. This dark night is an inflowing of God into the soul, which purges it from its ignorances and imperfections, habitual, natural, and spiritual, and which is called by contemplatives infused contemplation or mystical theology. Herein God secretly teaches the soul and instructs it in perfection of love without its doing anything, or understanding of what manner is this infused contemplation. Inasmuch as it is the loving wisdom of God, God produces striking effects in the soul, for by purging and illumining it, He prepares it for the union of love with God. Wherefore the same loving wisdom that purges the blessed spirits and enlightens them is that which here purges the soul and illumines it. But the question arises, why is the divine light, which, as we say, illumines and purges the soul from its ignorances, here called by the soul a dark night? To this the answer is that for two reasons this divine wisdom is not only night and darkness for the soul, but is likewise affliction and torment. The first is because of the height of divine wisdom, which transcends the talent of the soul, and in this way is darkness to it. The second, because of its vileness and impurity, in which respect it is painful and afflictive to it, and is also dark. In order to prove the first point, we must here assume a certain doctrine of the philosopher, which says that the more manifest and the clearer are divine things in themselves, the darker and more hidden they are to the soul naturally. Just as the clearer is the light, the more it blinds and darkens the pupil of the owl, and the more directly we look at the sun, the greater the darkness which it causes in our visual faculty, overcoming and overwhelming it through its own weakness. In the same way, when this divine light of contemplation assails the soul which is not yet wholly enlightened, it causes spiritual darkness in it. For not only does it overcome it, but likewise it overwhelms it and darkens the act of its natural intelligence. For this reason St. Dionysius and other mystical theologians call this infused contemplation a ray of darkness, that is to say, for the soul that is not enlightened and purged. For the natural strength of the intellect is transcended and overwhelmed by its great supernatural light. Wherefore David likewise said that near to God and round about him are darkness and cloud. Not that this is so in fact, but that it is so to our weak understanding, which is blinded and darkened by so vast a light to which it cannot attain. For this cause the same David then explained himself, saying, "Through the great splendor of his presence passed clouds," that is, between God and our understanding. And it is for this cause that when God sends it out from himself to the soul that is not yet transformed, this illumining ray of his secret wisdom causes thick darkness in the understanding. And it is clear that this dark contemplation is in these its beginnings painful likewise to the soul. For as this divine infused contemplation has many excellences that are extremely good, and the soul that receives them, not being purged, has many miseries that are likewise extremely bad, Hence it follows that as two contraries cannot coexist in one subject, the soul, it must of necessity have pain and suffering, since it is the subject wherein these two contraries war against each other, working the one against the other, by reason of the purgation of the imperfections of the soul, which comes to pass through this contemplation. This we shall prove inductively in the manner following. In the first place, because the light of this and wisdom of this contemplation is most bright and pure, and the soul which it assails is dark and impure, it follows that the soul suffers great pain when it receives it in itself, just as when the eyes are dimmed by humours and become impure and weak, the assault made upon them by a bright light causes them pain. And when the soul suffers the direct assault of this divine light, its pain, which results from its impurity, is immense, because when this pure light assails the soul, in order to expel its impurity, the soul feels itself to be so impure and miserable that it believes God to be against it, and thinks that it has set itself up against God. This causes it sore grief and pain, because it now believes that God has thrown it away. This was one of the greatest trials which Job felt when God sent him this experience, and he said, "Why have you sent me contrary to you, so that I am grievous and burdensome to myself?" For by means of this pure light the soul now sees its impurity clearly, though darkly, and knows clearly that it is unworthy of God or of any creature. And what